The crimson glow of Kepler's Gate's twin suns painted the crystal spires of New Arxia in shades of blood. Ambassador Tai Jin pressed his six-fingered hand against the command center's viewing port, watching another section of the city's outer ring collapse under plasma bombardment. The graceful towers that had taken his people centuries to grow from living crystal now crumbled like sandcastles before the tide. Shield integrity down to 12%, Science Officer Minho called out, his usually calm voice cracking with exhaustion. Dark circles rimmed his large opalescent eyes that had seen too much death over the past 8 months. Generator Complex 7 has gone offline. We're losing structural cohesion in the northern districts. The command center shuddered as another barrage struck their failing defenses. Holographic displays flickered and sparked, casting dancing shadows across the faces of the skeletal crew that remained. Most of the Arxian leadership had evacuated to the deep shelters weeks ago, but Tai Jin refused to abandon his post. Someone had to witness their final stand. Through the tactical display, he watched the hegemony fleet adjust their formation. 200 vessels of various sizes hung in the void like black parasites against the starfield. The smallest were destroyer-class ships, sleek predators bristling with missile pods and pulse cannons. The larger cruisers resembled mechanical spiders, their hulls adorned with the twisted metal sculptures that the hegemony considered art. But it was the dreadnoughts that truly terrified him, massive fortress ships capable of glassing entire continents with their main batteries. Any word from the outer colonies? Tai Jin asked, though he already knew the answer. Communications specialist Daehan shook her head, her translucent skin pale with stress. Arxia Prime went silent 3 days ago. The research station at Kepler's Edge transmitted a distress signal. Yesterday, then nothing. We're the last. The irony wasn't lost on him. Kepler's Gate had been named for humanity's ancient astronomer, back when the galaxy still considered Earth's children primitive planet-bound creatures. Now, the Arxians faced extinction on a world named for a species most galactic powers barely acknowledged. Minho's console erupted in urgent chimes. Hegemony ground forces are massing in Sector 4. Troop transports moving into descent position. His voice dropped to a whisper. They're preparing for final assault. Tai Jin closed his eyes and felt the weight of 3 million lives pressing down on him. The Arxians had always been scholars and artists, not warriors. Their greatest weapons were theoretical physics equations and symphony crystals that could make entire worlds weep with their beauty. What chance did they have against the hegemony's brutal efficiency? Have we received any response to our distress signals? He asked, though hope had long since died in his chest. Daehan's fingers danced across her quantum relay controls. The Confederation Council expressed their deep concern and promised to file a formal protest. The Zephyrian Empire offered thoughts and prayers, but cited non-interference protocols. The Trade Collective... She paused, swallowing hard. They've officially recognized hegemony territorial claims to this system. The words hit like physical blows. Every major power in the galaxy was abandoning them to their fate. The Confederation, with their mighty fleets and noble rhetoric about protecting smaller species. The Trade Collective, who had grown rich from Arxian crystal tech exports, even the mysterious Voidwalkers, who claimed to be guardians of galactic peace, remained silent. What about the newer species? Tai Jin asked desperately. The Terrans, the humans from the Sol system? A sad smile crossed Daehan's features. Sir, their entire fleet probably numbers less than 50 ships. They're barely past their first contact. Protocols? What could they possibly do against this? She gestured at the tactical display showing the massive hegemony armada. Another section of the city's shields collapsed, and the sound of distant explosions echoed through the command centers. Crystal walls. Emergency klaxons wailed as automated systems struggled to maintain life support in the damaged sections. Through the chaos, Tai Jin could hear something that chilled him to his core. The sound of Arxian children crying in the deep shelters. Sir, Minho said softly, the last shield generator is showing critical overload warnings. We have perhaps 30 minutes before total failure. Tai Jin straightened his shoulders and walked to the central command podium. His people deserved better than cowering in the dark. If these were to be their final moments, they would face them with dignity intact. "Open all channels," he commanded. "All frequencies, maximum broadcast power." The communications array hummed to life, sending his words racing across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. In the depths of space, quantum relays would catch his message and bounce it to every listening post, every monitoring station, every world that still had ears to hear. This is Ambassador Tai Jin of the Arxian Republic, speaking from Kepler's gate. "For 8 months we have endured siege by the hegemony forces. We asked for help. We begged for intervention. We offered everything we had in exchange for protection." His voice grew stronger with each word. "The galaxy has chosen silence. Very well, we die with dignity intact. Remember us not as victims, but as people who stood for something greater than ourselves. Remember the Arxians of Kepler's gate." The message pulsed outward through space, carrying with it the final testament of a dying world. The UES thunders. Edge drifted through the cosmic void, like a predator waiting to strike. Captain Somin stood on the bridge, her fingers drumming against the command chair's armrest, as she watched the encrypted data stream from Earth Command. The ship's stealth systems hummed quietly, bending light and energy around their hull to make them invisible to enemy sensors. Navigator Jiwoo broke the silence first. "Captain, we're holding position exactly 3 light hours from Kepler's gate. Long-range sensors show the hegemony fleet maintaining bombardment formation." Her voice carried the controlled tension of someone who'd been watching a massacre unfold for hours. The bridge's main screen displayed the tactical situation in stark detail. Red dots marked hegemony vessels, while the dying blue glow of Arxian shields flickered like a candle in a hurricane. Somin had watched 17 different alien species fall to hegemony expansion over the past decade. Each time, the galaxy's major powers found excuses to look the other way. "Incoming priority transmission from Admiral Dongwook, Communications," Specialist Ye Jin announced. "Ultra-black encryption, eyes-only protocol." Somin activated her personal console, biometric scanners confirming her identity before the message unlocked. Admiral Dongwook's weathered face appeared on the screen, his expression grim but determined. "Captain Somin, you are hereby authorized to execute Operation Lightning Strike. The hegemony's advance toward human space ends here. You have full tactical discretion, but remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for every species the galaxy has written off as expendable." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Somin looked around at her crew, seeing her own thoughts reflected in their faces. 40 human ships against a fleet of 200. By any conventional calculation, it was suicide. Weapons Officer Hyun Woo was the first to speak. "Captain, I've been running combat simulations since we arrived. Even with our stealth advantage and superior maneuverability, the numbers are brutal. We're looking at 7-to-1 odds in their favor." Engineer Jamin pulled up a holographic display of their fleet composition. "Our ships are newer, faster, and better armed per ton than anything the hegemony fields. But they've got those massive dreadnoughts. One direct hit from their main guns, and even our heaviest cruiser becomes space dust." Somin studied the data, her mind racing through possibilities. The human fleet was small but deadly. Each ship represented years of research and development, incorporating lessons learned from every conflict humanity had witnessed since joining the galactic community. While other species built bigger and more powerful vessels, humans had focused on speed, stealth, and precision. "Ye Jin, what's our intelligence on hegemony fleet composition?" Somin asked. The communications specialist pulled up detailed scans. "Mostly older designs, Captain. They favor overwhelming firepower over tactical flexibility. Heavy armor but slow maneuvering thrusters. Their command structure is rigidly hierarchical. All tactical decisions flow through the flagship. That's their weakness," Somin realized. "They're not used to fighting opponents who can think faster than their chain of command allows." Navigator Jiwoo highlighted several points on the tactical display. "I've been analyzing their patrol patterns for months. They run the same routes, same timing, same formations. It's like they're following a textbook written 50 years ago." The bridge doors slid open as Commander Inho arrived from the marine deck. His powered armor bore the scars of a dozen covert operations, and his cybernetic eye glowed softly in the dim lighting. "Captain, my teams are ready for boarding actions. We've been studying hegemony ship layouts and identified critical vulnerabilities in their command vessels." So-Min nodded, a plan beginning to form in her mind. Humanity might be outnumbered, but they had advantages the enemy couldn't comprehend. Human ships were equipped with AI systems that could process battlefield data and adapt tactics in real time. Their crews trained constantly in simulation pods that replicated every possible combat scenario. Most importantly, they fought with a desperation that came from knowing they were Earth's children, alone in a hostile galaxy. "Engineering, what's the status of our phase shift drives?" So-Min asked. Jaemin grinned, the expression transforming his usually serious face. "All systems green, Captain. We can ghost through their sensor nets and hit them from angles they'll never expect." The phase shift technology was humanity's greatest secret, a revolutionary propulsion system reverse-engineered from ancient alien artifacts found in Earth's outer system. It allowed ships to briefly shift out of normal spacetime, becoming untouchable for precious seconds while repositioning for attack. "Here's what we're going to do," So-Min announced, her voice carrying the confidence that had made her one of Earth's youngest fleet captains. "We're not going to fight their battle, we're going to fight ours." She activated the fleet-wide communication system, her words reaching 39 other human captains scattered through the darkness. Each ship carried a crew of specialists who had volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a one-way mission. "All vessels, this is Captain So-Min. Operation Lightning Strike is now active. Remember your training, and remember why we're here. The galaxy thinks we're just another minor species, barely worth notice. Today we show them what humans are really capable of." The Thunder's Edge began to move, its engines producing no visible exhaust as it accelerated toward the hegemony. Fleet, around them invisible in the cosmic darkness, 39 other human warships did the same. They moved with the coordinated precision of a pack of wolves, each captain knowing their role in the coming storm. On her private command channel, So-Min opened a connection to her old friend, Captain Dong-Su of the UES Silent Thunder. "Ready? To make some noise, old friend?" His voice crackled back through the encrypted link. "Born ready, So-Min. Let's show these aliens what happens when you mess with the wrong species." The human fleet slipped through dark space like ghosts, their crews at battle stations and weapons armed. Behind them, Earth waited for news. Ahead of them, a dying world hoped for salvation. The hunt had begun. Lieutenant Commander Sun Ho materialized. Inside the hegemony flagship like a shadow given form, the phase shift technology scattered his molecules across dimensions for 3 heartbeats before reassembling him in the enemy vessel's central corridor. His specialized suit absorbed the disorientation that would have killed an unprotected human, leaving him ready for action within seconds. The Dominator's Pride was a massive beast of a ship, its corridors wide enough to accommodate the various alien species that served the hegemony. Sun Ho crouched behind a support beam, watching a Sci-Fi patrol of Krillian soldiers march past. Their chitinous armor clicked against the metal deck plates, and their forearms carried weapons that could punch through tank armor. But they never looked up at the ceiling where Sun Ho clung like a spider. "Ghost Team Alpha is aboard," he whispered, into his throat mic. Proceeding to primary objectives, his team of 6 specialists had materialized throughout the flagship, each targeting critical systems. Demolitions expert Kyung-Min was already moving toward the main reactor, while computer specialist Hee-Jin headed for the central data core. The others spread out like deadly phantoms, invisible to the ship's sensors thanks to their adaptive camouflage suits. Sun Ho made his way through ventilation shafts and maintenance passages, following schematics downloaded from captured hegemony. Vessels. The flagship's bridge lay 12 decks above, but first he needed to access their tactical network. A secondary command center 2 levels up would give him everything he needed. The hegemony had conquered 17 star systems by being ruthlessly efficient and brutally predictable. Their ships were fortresses, their tactics were overwhelming force, and their command structure was rigid hierarchy. What they weren't prepared for was humans who could walk through walls and strike from impossible angles. Sun Ho dropped through a service hatch directly behind two hegemony officers, studying tactical displays. Before they could react, his stunner dropped them unconscious. He plugged his portable interface into their command console and began downloading terabytes of battle data. "This is incredible," he breathed, watching the information flow across his visor display. "Their entire fleet coordination runs through this one ship. Every tactical decision, every movement order, every weapons command, it all flows through the flagship's central computer." He activated his quantum burst transmitter, a device that could punch a message through space-time faster than light itself. Captain Somin's voice crackled back through layers of encryption. "Confirmed, Sun Ho. We're seeing the same pattern from our external scans. The hegemony treats their fleet like one giant machine instead of individual ships." "It gets better." "Captain," Sun Ho replied, scrolling through tactical files. "They've got preset formation patterns going back decades. Same attack vectors, same defensive positions. They're fighting the last war over and over again." While Sun Ho worked, his team moved through the flagship like ghosts. Kyung-min had reached the reactor level and was placing shaped charges designed to create a cascading power failure rather than an explosion. The goal wasn't to destroy the ship, but to cripple it at the perfect moment. Hyejin's voice whispered through the team channel. "I'm in their main computer core. These systems are ancient by human standards. Their encryption is like trying to lock a bank vault with a wooden door." She began planting logic bombs, hidden programs that would activate on Sun Ho's command and turn the hegemony's own systems against them. Communication arrays would broadcast false orders, sensor networks would report phantom contacts, and weapon systems would suffer convenient malfunctions. Meanwhile, 3 decks below, Specialist Chan Wu was accessing the flagship's hangar bay controls. Rows of hegemony fighters sat ready for launch, their pilots sleeping in nearby quarters. With a few keystrokes, he locked down all launch systems and began draining fuel from the combat craft. On Kepler's gate, the final shield generator erupted in a shower of sparks and molten crystal. Ambassador Tae Jin felt the command center shake as the protective barrier that had kept his people alive for 8 months finally collapsed. Through the viewing ports, he could see hegemony troop transports beginning their descent toward the planet's surface. "Shield grid is completely offline," Science Officer Minho reported, his voice hollow with despair. "They're moving to ground." Assault positions. Estimated 30 minutes until the first landing craft reached the surface. The tactical display showed the truth in merciless detail. Hundreds of troop ships were breaking away from the main fleet, loaded with hegemony soldiers, ready to claim another world for their empire. Each transport carried enough firepower to level a city block and enough troops to occupy an entire continent. Tae-jin closed his eyes and thought of the children hiding in the deep shelters. Young Arxians who would never grow up to see the crystal, gardens bloom or hear the symphony stones sing their ancient melodies. The galaxy had abandoned them, and now they would pay the price for trusting in the mercy of civilized species. "This is the end," Minho whispered, watching the enemy ships descend like falling stars. But in the depths of space, something impossible was happening. 40 shapes began to materialize from the cosmic darkness, their hulls gleaming with the deadly beauty of human engineering. The UES fleet dropped their stealth systems simultaneously, appearing on every sensor screen in the system like vengeful spirits. Captain So-min's voice echoed across all communication frequencies. "This is the United Earth ship Thunder's Edge to all hegemony vessels. You are ordered to cease your attack and withdraw immediately. This is your only warning." The hegemony admiral's response was predictable. "Unknown vessels, you are interfering in hegemony territorial expansion. Withdraw or be destroyed. Sun Ho." Smiled grimly as he watched the exchange from inside the enemy flagship. "Captain, all charges are in place. Teams are ready for extraction. On your command, we can turn their own ship into a weapon against them." "Confirmed, Ghost Team," So-min replied. "All human vessels, this is Lightning Strike Actual. The enemy has refused surrender. Phase 2 is now active. Show them what happens when humans get angry." The trap was set. The hegemony fleet found themselves surrounded by ships that shouldn't exist, led by captains who refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. And deep inside their flagship, 6 human ghosts prepared to turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. The cavalry had indeed arrived, and they brought thunder with them. The UES Thunder's Edge burst from stealth like a predator, striking from ambush. Captain So-min gripped her command chair as the ship's kinetic cannons opened fire, sending streams of hyper-accelerated tungsten rods into the heart of the hegemony formation. Each projectile moved at a significant fraction of light speed, carrying enough kinetic energy to punch clean through a battle cruiser's armor. Direct hit on enemy cruiser Death's Hand. Weapons Officer Hyun Woo called out, his voice electric with excitement. Their armor plating is peeling away like tinfoil. Around them, 39 other human warships materialized from the void, each one appearing inside the hegemony fleet's defensive perimeter. The enemy had been caught completely off guard, their sensors still trying to process contacts that had appeared from literally nowhere. All vessels weapons free, So-min commanded. Execute attack pattern Delta 7, target their command ships. First, the human fleet moved like a school of deadly fish, each ship following pre-programmed attack vectors, while their AI systems coordinated fire solutions in real time. The Thunder's Edge rolled inverted and dove beneath a massive hegemony dreadnought, its belly guns raking the enemy ship's underbelly where armor was thinnest. Navigator Ji Woo's hands danced across her console as she threw their ship into a spiraling attack run that would have been impossible for larger vessels. Coming around for another pass, Captain. Their point defense systems can't track us at this speed. The hegemony fleet began responding, with the ponderous movements of giants awakening. Energy beams lanced out from their massive weapon batteries, brilliant streams of coherent light designed to overwhelm enemy shields through sheer power. But the human ships weren't where the targeting computers expected them to be. Enemy destroyer Bone Crusher has lock on us. Communications specialist Ye-jin warned as her console screamed proximity alerts. Not for long, So-min grinned, activating their ship's revolutionary defense system. The incoming energy beam struck the Thunder's Edge dead center and scattered into harmless light. Humanity's distributed armor didn't try to stop enemy fire like traditional shields. Instead, it used crystalline matrix technology to absorb the energy and redirect it through thousands of microchannels, spreading the impact across the entire hull until it became manageable. Their weapons are designed for ships that fight like floating fortresses, Engineer Jae-min reported from his station. They can't adapt to our hit-and-run tactics. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Sun Ho's voice crackled through the quantum communication link from inside the hegemony flagship. Ghost team initiating sabotage protocols now. Aboard the Dominator's Pride, chaos erupted as Hyejin's logic. Bombs activated throughout the ship's computer networks. Navigation systems began reporting false headings, weapon targeting computers locked onto friendly vessels, and internal communication arrays started broadcasting random noise instead of orders. "What's happening to our fleet coordination?" the hegemony admiral roared at his bridge crew, watching as his perfectly organized formation began to crumble into confusion. His tactical officer frantically worked at his console. "Sir, we're receiving conflicting orders from multiple sources. Our own computer is telling us to retreat, while also commanding us to advance. The targeting systems are malfunctioning." On the planet's surface, the first wave of human marines hit the ground like falling meteors. Sergeant Major Won Shik led Alpha Company as they dropped from stealth transports, their powered armor absorbing the impact of a 3-kilometer fall. Each marine was a walking weapons platform, equipped with adaptive armor that could shift from invisible to heavily armored in seconds. "Hegemony ground forces 2 clicks northeast," reported Corporal Sung-ho through the tactical network. "Looks like they were planning to march straight into the Arxian cities." "Change of plans for them," Won Shik replied grimly, signaling his troops to advance. "All squads, light them up." The hegemony soldiers never saw them coming. One moment they were advancing across the crystal plains in their massive walker mechs. The next moment, explosions erupted throughout their formation as invisible enemies struck from all directions. Human marines phase shifted through solid matter, appearing inside enemy vehicles to plant charges before vanishing again. In the Arxian command center, Ambassador Tae-jin watched the impossible unfold on his tactical displays. The massive hegemony fleet that had terrorized his people for 8 months was falling apart before his eyes. Ships collided with each other as their navigation systems failed, while the smaller human vessels darted between them like deadly wasps. "How are they doing this?" Science Officer Minho whispered, staring at the chaos above their world. "Those ships are tiny compared to the hegemony dreadnoughts." Communications Specialist Daun looked up from her console with wonder in her eyes. "I'm intercepting human battle communications. They're not fighting like any species I've ever studied. Every ship seems to know what every other ship is doing without central coordination. It's like they're sharing one mind." The truth was even more remarkable. Human ships were equipped with quantum-entangled AI networks that allowed them to process battlefield information and adapt tactics faster than any organic brain could follow. While the hegemony commanders were still trying to understand what was happening, the human fleet had already moved on to their next attack pattern. Captain So-min watched her tactical display as enemy ships began breaking away from the battle, their crews abandoning formation to flee into hyperspace. "This is Thunder's Edge to all vessels. The enemy is routing. Pursue and harass, but don't let them draw you away from our primary objective." The battle wasn't over, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. The hegemony fleet, which had seemed invincible just hours before, was scattering like leaves in a hurricane. Their rigid command structure had become their greatest weakness when faced with an enemy that refused to fight by established rules. Kepler's Gate. Arxian children emerged from their shelters to see human marines removing their helmets and offering emergency supplies. The galaxy's supposed primitive species had crossed impossible distances and faced overwhelming odds to save people they had never met. Ambassador Tae-jin finally found his voice as he watched the liberation of his world unfold. "How?" was all he could whisper, but it contained within it the seeds of a new understanding. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The wreckage of the once mighty hegemony fleet drifted through space like broken dreams. Twisted metal and shattered hulls caught the light of Kepler's Gate's twin suns, creating a graveyard of conquest that would serve as a warning to future aggressors. Captain So-min stood on her bridge, watching the last enemy ships disappear into hyperspace, their crews too broken and demoralized to continue the fight. "Final casualty report, Captain," Engineer Jae-min announced, his voice filled with amazement. "We lost 3 fighters and sustained minor damage to 4 cruisers. Total human casualties, 7 wounded, 0 killed. The hegemony lost 43, ships including their flagship, with an estimated 15,000 casualties." The numbers were almost impossible to believe. 40 human ships had faced down 200 enemy vessels and emerged virtually unscathed. It wasn't just victory, it was a complete reversal of galactic military thinking. On the planet's surface, the liberation was already underway. Human marines in their distinctive powered armor worked alongside Arxian emergency crews, carefully extracting civilians from collapsed shelters. Sergeant Major Won Shik watched as his troops distributed medical supplies and energy rations, their weapons now slung peacefully across their backs. "These people have been through hell, Corporal," Seong-ho reported, helping an elderly Arxian female to her feet. Her crystalline skin bore the stress fractures that came from months of living in constant fear. "Their medical facilities are overwhelmed. We need to get the fleet's hospital ships down here." The first meeting between Captain So-min and Ambassador Tae-jin took place in what had once been the colony's central plaza. The elegant crystal amphitheater bore scars from the bombardment, great gouges where energy beams had melted the living stone. But Arxian children were already emerging from the ruins, their large eyes wide with wonder as they stared at the humans who had saved their world. Tae-jin approached slowly, his 6-fingered hands trembling slightly from exhaustion and relief. Behind him came the remnants of his government, ministers and scientists who had spent 8 months preparing for death, and now faced the impossible task of learning to live again. Captain So-min of the United Earthship. Thunder's Edge, she introduced herself, removing her command helmet to reveal features that were both alien and strangely familiar to the Arxian leader. "On behalf of humanity, we're honored to have arrived in time. Your species was catalogued as minor in our databases, Tae-jin said, his voice filled with confusion and gratitude. The Galactic Powers Assessment showed Earth controlling perhaps 50 ships total. How did you achieve such decisive victory against the hegemony's most powerful fleet? So-min's smile carried the weight of humanity's long journey from a backwater world to galactic relevance. We learned from every species that underestimated us, Ambassador. We watched, we adapted, and we prepared for the moment when courage would meet opportunity. She gestured toward the human ships now in orbit around Kepler's gate. While other species built bigger and more powerful vessels, we focused on what humans do best: innovation under pressure. Our ships aren't the largest in the galaxy, but they're the smartest. Our weapons aren't the most destructive, but they're the most precise. Our crews aren't the most numerous, but they're the most adaptable. Lieutenant Commander Sun Ho approached from where he'd been coordinating rescue operations. His infiltration suit still bore traces of hegemony ship corridors, and his cybernetic implants glowed softly in the alien sunlight. Captain, we've finished extracting intelligence from their abandoned vessels. The hegemony had detailed plans for conquering 17 more systems, including 3 with human colonies. The implications sent a chill through the assembled group. This hadn't just been about saving one world. It had been about stopping an expansion that would have engulfed dozens of species. Communications specialist Ye Jin's voice crackled through So-min's comm unit. Captain, we're receiving transmissions. From across the galaxy, word of our victory is spreading through the quantum networks. The Confederation Council has requested an emergency session. The Trade Collective is sending diplomatic envoys. Even the Void Walkers are breaking their silence. In the following hours, as human medical teams worked alongside Arxian healers to treat the wounded, a remarkable transformation began to take place. Arxian children who had cowered in shelters for months started approaching human marines, their natural curiosity overcoming their fear. Soon the plaza echoed with the sound of laughter, as young Arxians tried to pronounce human names while teaching their rescuers basic phrases in their melodic language. Young Kethra, barely old enough to understand what had happened, tugged on Sergeant Wonshik's armored sleeve. "Are you really from the star called Sol?" she asked in her piping voice. Wonshik knelt down to her level, his scarred face softening. "That's right, little one. We came a very long way to help your people." "Why?" she asked with the directness that only children possess. The question hung in the air for a moment before Wonshik answered simply, "Because it was the right thing to do." As the first reports reached Earth through quantum communicators, humanity's homeworld erupted in celebration. But for the crews of the rescue fleet, the real reward was simpler and more immediate: the sight of an entire species learning to hope again. Engineer Jamin found Captain So-min standing alone on a balcony, overlooking the Crystal City as it began to rebuild itself. The Arxians' living architecture was already starting to repair the damage, crystal growths filling in the gaps left by hegemony weapons. "The galaxy will never be the same, will it?" he asked quietly. So-min nodded, watching as human and Arxian engineers worked side by side to restore the city's power grid. For too long, the major powers have let bullies like the hegemony run wild because intervening was inconvenient or unprofitable. Today we proved that sometimes the right thing to do is also the smart thing to do. Across the galaxy, quantum transmitters carried the news of humanity's victory to every listening post and monitoring station. The species that had dismissed Earth's children as primitive newcomers now faced a fundamental question. What did it mean when the minor powers could accomplish what the major ones wouldn't even attempt? The hegemony's expansion had been built on the assumption that superior firepower could overcome any opposition. They had conquered world after world because no one was willing to stand up to them. But humanity had proven that courage, innovation, and moral conviction could triumph over brute force and indifference. As Kepler's gate's twin suns set on their first day of freedom in 8 months, Arxian children fell asleep, learning human names alongside their own heroes. The thunder of humanity's justice had echoed through the stars, and the galaxy would never forget the sound. In years to come, when historians wrote about the moment the galactic balance of power shifted, they would point to this day, the day